Burgess? Here. Jones? Here. Myers? Here. Tates? Here. Washington? Yeah. Williams? Here. All right, I'd like to review.
I do have a few questions about the budget, a few highlight areas. I'm going to pass this around. The ones that I have questions about basically highlighted. You can see it in the area. We have a copy for Mohammed.
You have nothing to say?
So, yeah, they're the actual print on my darker than the regular.
So today's the first time that we're taking, and you haven't talked to Mohan about it?
No, I was going to there, but you moved the date up to Saturday, so I didn't get a chance to talk to Mohan about it.
You had the agenda for how long?
Since Tuesday,
And I asked.
since Tuesday, I had the budget since Tuesday. I asked for it to be put on the agenda for next Tuesday.
I'm just trying to clear something up, okay? First of all, the village board moved this agenda over a month ago. It's been out for residents to review. And again, you said you had some questions, which could have been answered over the last month. But I just want to make sure we're clear that, number one, no one on this board, I asked, no one on this board has seen these changes that the trustees recommended. And as, you know, up to a certain point, you have been the financial liaison, and you have not got any of these questions or concerns, or got any of your answers as of today. Is that correct?
No, it's not. I asked, when we went over the budget, I told you I had some reservations then. I didn't highlight them all, I had reservations then. You were adamant that we keep going over it. I said, okay, fine, you want to do what you want me to do? I'll bring them up at a later date. That was the time that we actually did it. The reason that I didn't get this to everyone because the final proposal came out May 12th. That was last Tuesday. So I had, yes, I'm not a miracle worker. I can't do this in one day. I thought I had it.
There is a change to the final budget.
There was still changes there. I don't care if it was one or two, it was changes. And those are the things that I went over. So I had to get this together. I was looking at a time frame of Saturday, next Tuesday. Yesterday or Thursday, whichever one it was, you ordered or you asked for a special meeting this Saturday. So yes, no, I didn't get a chance to talk to Mohan about this, but I figured I would talk to him here today. I don't see what the problem is.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure. All right.
Okay. Now, as I stated before, the things that I have questions about are actually in print, in darker print, on the pages. So when you look at them, you can go page by page. I do have some questions and reservations about.
And no one else on the board has seen this, correct? No.
They could have, I just printed it off. Just now.
Okay, I'll make sure we're clear. Okay. Sorry.
Okay, page 1. Where it is at Illinois state tax. Okay. That's item 321. All of them have 1000000. This is item 321 in Illinois state income tax. Okay. This is something that if you look on your May 12th. So we probably would need your May 12th proposed budget to kind of look at this and see how the numbers change and where I got this from. Okay, I'm on the first page of mine, but I'm looking at, this would be the first page on the May 12th budget also. This is your property tax. Okay. At that part, I didn't see any discrepancy, I didn't see any problems. When it comes down to the second part of that first page, where it says only estate tax, okay? Originally, it was 700,000, and now it's 800,000. So originally, it was May 8th. That's why it took me so long, and I had to go with May 8th, May 12th, and then I had to make a determination and look at that. So if you look at your May 8th, it was 700. If you look at your May 12th, it's 800,000. And my question is, why did we increase $300,000? Because we already know that we're going to have a decrease of income, state income taxes from the governor because he stated that. So I inserted 509,000.
And this was explained that the governor did not cut our 2015. We received confirmation from both IML and Sauk Village Mayor's managers that the LGDF has not been cut for 2015 as the governor proposed. And however, they still are looking at 2016. They're looking at the budget. We're receiving word also as of right now that they're not going to cut the full 16 at 50%. However, we left it at 50% for 2016. So by being able to put back in the 2015 budget, that's what brought us back up to $800,000.
Okay, because when I'm looking at, I'm trying to go with real, numbers and actuality. In other words, what we're trying to. I'm not looking to propose more money, Mayor and the board. I'm looking to keep it at a reasonable rate. If we get money, fine, we can utilize it because we have an agent report, a debt report. But if we don't get it, I'm trying to be reasonable that at this particular amount is what we should be budgeting for, because he did state that he would cut it. I mean, I haven't seen a letter that states that it's going to happen. I mean, you said that there's a letter out there, but we all know that we had things that were supposed to come in and they didn't come in. So I'm not going at the very beginning and trying to inflate. This is revenue. This is not expenditure. This is still in the part of revenue. That was my recommendation.
Okay. Again, we've got the information. I can get the copy of the letter for you. It came through IML. If you search the IML site, you'll find they put a memo out from IML. I can get you the letter or the email from Sauk Village managers.
And also,
again, this is something that we knew was going to come down. Some of the verification that we got when we were down in Springfield a couple weeks ago, meeting with our state reps and getting the information from IML. We had started that morning with a meeting at IML. So again, we cut both 2015, 2016 at first because that's what the governor was proposing. It wasn't until we got confirmation that, and this comes from our state representatives from IML, from Sauk Village managers, and we got confirmation when we were in Springfield that they did not cut 2015. Again, however, 2016 is still on the table. We're pretty confident by what we're receiving from Springfield. They're not going to cut it to full 50%. However, we did leave it at 50% inside our budget just because we don't know for sure. So anything over and above or anything less than they cut will end up being money back into the budget. However, we left it at 50% for 2016.
okay, but as I stated before, and I'll say it again, I'm looking at funds that are more realistic. If we get more money in, Mayor, then we can use that money to pay off our agent report. Because we still owe the lawyers at this time $452,000. So if we get money coming in, we can be proactive and start cutting, as you said before, we cut the agent report. We can use that to cut the agent report. And I was just trying to give a recommendation, And that's what you asked for. You asked for a recommendation to, for the budget, and these are some of the recommendations I have. Okay, next item. You go down on the same page, you come down to where it says garbage collection fees. Everyone have that? Okay, where in the budget does it show that the village is collecting money for the garbage collection and paying the public for their services? Where in the budget does it show?
It doesn't show because it's a liability. Normally, when we get the money, it will be credited back to liability because it's a liability in the balance sheet account that will not be reflected in budget. Because it is payable, it is not our revenue. So
It's their revenue, it's not ours.
it's their revenue. That's why.
This portion of the 25,000 is our portion of the revenue, correct? This is what the village brings in based off our administration.
This is an administration cost, right?
Yeah, administration.
Correct.
So I'm just saying, where does it show? It doesn't show in the budget as a line
It
item.
doesn't show in the budget because it's a liability. When we will bill them, the liability will be credited. When we pay them, the liability will be debited. So it is an offsetting account. It's a liability and asset account. It is not an expenditure or revenue account.
It is a revenue.
No, it is not revenue.
You're charging the people.
No, for us it is not revenue. It is a liability. Because we bill on behalf of third party. We collect the money on behalf of third party. It's like an offsetting account. It's a wash. Our portion of the revenue is only the service fee we charge to the people.
I understand that, Mohammed. My question is this. You have revenue and you have expenditures. It should show somewhere in our expenditures the money for the 20,000 we got last year, 20,000, and expect to get 25,000. It should show somewhere that we're using that 20,000 for whatever. I mean, it should be in somewhere.
Just so, hang on, just to make this clear. This 25,000 is not what we're paying out. This
No.
25,000 is administration fee.
That's what I said.
And that's why it's showing that we're receiving money.
Absolutely.
The other is money that we're collecting on behalf of P.L.A.N. And again, this is going to be a change that I'm going to present to the board because I'm getting tired of the village collecting for their agencies. They're a utility, they should be collecting for themselves. This is something that we are going to be presenting to the village board probably pretty shortly, that we're no longer going to, again, it's going to be at the, on behalf of the village board, if they want to or not. I don't see, we don't collect for our electric company, we don't collect for our gas company, we don't collect for other utilities. And that's what garbage pickup is, a utility. We collect for them, we put it on our water bills. And again, it's something else that the residents have to see on their water bill, and they don't, sometimes they don't even understand it. They're paying for their water, their sewer, and their garbage on that one bill. So again, this 25,000 is what we're receiving administration fee. We get like 50 cents or something per billing, per resident. That's our administration fee. We get paid $25,000 a year to do the billing for P.L.A.N, which used to be P.L.A.N. So again, when you talk about a wash, I mean, if we wanted to take a look at how much is coming in and say, okay, it's coming in, we're paying it out, it's still going to be a wash anyway to look at it because we only pay what the residents pay back to P.L.A.N.
Approximately, we bill on behalf of the public services about $480,000 per year. Approximately, we will charge them about $24,000 to $25,000 to public services. So that portion of it is reflected as revenue.
Correct. So the other is not revenue.
My question was, we're gonna go all the way back, is why there is not a line item showing that we're using this money that we brought in.
Because it is not a revenue to the municipality or not an expenditure.
It's revenue to the municipality.
It is not revenue or the expenditure because we are billing on behalf of some X, Y.
Absolutely, and it's an administrative cost.
Yes, you know, it should not be reflected
But you have
upon.
it, it's listed as garbage collection fees. That's on the revenue. Only thing I'm asking, I'm not asking how much or why we projected more, because last year we got in $20,396, now you're looking at $25,000. Okay, maybe we had people who come in or move in that's going to pay extra $5,000. Okay, I'm not questioning that. You know, I'm questioning the fact that it's brought in and all that, because that's what's wrong now. We have this black hole called the general fund. Everything goes there, but nothing is accountable. I mean, we need to know at least some of the things that we're bringing in, that we're paying something, because it is earmarked here as revenue from the garbage collection. So that was something that I wanted to find out. Parks and playgrounds, going down to the grants. Okay, I see that this is a proposed grant that we, hopefully they will get it. And I also see in expenditures that it's the same thing, in other words, the same amount for construction. But I just have a problem listing it again until we get it. Why do we even put that on there? Why is that on the budget at all if we haven't gotten it? I mean, it looks good, but that's like saying that, we're playing the lottery. And hopefully that we'll win. And if we win, we'll do this. I would rather see that not even on there and not even budgeted into the grant money, because we was, it was already stated that we weren't going to get it. And if we do get it, that's a win-win for us. It's already earmarked. But I just wanted to see, wonder why we put that in.
This question, your question, I'll answer these as we go, so not out loud. Number one, Sauk Village did receive this grant under a previous administration, which was under Governor Flynn. Governor Rauner came in and placed everything on hold. This is one of the things that we talked to when I talked to Wayne, I can remember his last name, new director of IDNR last couple weeks ago down in Springfield. They've got a new director who's very much in favor of making sure funds go where they're supposed to go. However, his hands are tied right now because the governor has froze the funds. Now, the funds are still sitting there, according to him, and the funds are still allocated to go out to municipalities. Sauk Village is not one of the municipalities sitting there that was supposed to receive these funds. We're probably one of the few municipalities that didn't start to work without the funds. Other municipalities started everything, and now they're really pushing the governor, saying, we've already spent this money, we need to have that money reimbursed, and we didn't start the work. Okay, so we're hearing good things out of Springfield that the money is supposed to come. So what you do is it's in here because number one, we're expecting to receive that money, and we do the same thing. I think with our police department, fire department, with projected grants that they're looking to get. They're inside their budgets also. So this is a grant that we're expecting to receive, and these are the funds that we're going to spend for that grant reason. The other day I did have the board, I brought the board out here again. In between break while I'm getting some stuff, we'll bring the board back out, stick it out for the residents to show what the grant money's for. It's a specific grant for specific items to be done. And that's what those funds are supposed to be used for. And it's the only thing those funds can be used for. Just like when the fire department applies for a grant for fire gear, when that money comes in, we can only spend that money for fire gear. Police department usually puts in money for bulletproof vest or I can't remember, cops, things like that. That's what those money. And again, when you look at the police budget, that's a great one, because we're projecting on bringing an additional police officer, and based off a cops grant that we're going to receive. Do we have that money? No, we don't have money. But we're told that we're going to receive that money. So all through this budget, there's grants that's projected that we're supposed to receive, and that's what those monies are allocated for. Just like for a police officer. We're bringing on an additional police officer this year, a cops grant. Now, that police officer will hit here once we receive that grant. But again, we haven't started the hiring process or hiring that officer yet, just going to get money. And that's in here, it's in this budget.
Okay,
what if we don't get the grant at the end, by the time the end of the year comes in?
We don't spend the money. We do not spend the funds or move forward to hiring police officers or going out and getting fire gear or going out and getting bulletproof vests until we know for sure we have a grant. And like I said, other municipalities, I've been in meetings with the mayors, they were given a letter just like we received that said, congratulations, you received the grant. They started to work immediately. You know, I listened to the governor who was just sworn in office the day prior to us receiving that letter, and him saying, I'm freezing all funds. So as a municipality, you know, especially as the mayor in his position, I told everyone, don't spend anything until we get confirmation. It was, what, 3 weeks later? It was 3 weeks later we received a letter from the IDNR telling us, hold off, don't spend the funds. You know, where a lot of municipalities 3 weeks earlier, as soon as they got the letter, they went out, they already had bids, they told all their contractors to start working. We did not. It's the same thing with any grant that we receive. It's budgeted in here. It's budgeted for the fire department to get additional fire gear, but they will not get that fire gear until they get the grant. It's budgeted for another police officer, but we won't hire that police officer until we know for sure we've got the grant. It's budgeted for this work through Parks and Recs, for the parks to be redone, but the work will not begin until we get the grant. It's that way on everything. And again, we talk about, you know, we might show blank, but we'll talk about other things. It's budgeted, but you don't spend it to get money. So, yes, trustee.
When I work on other budgets, if we're waiting for money to come in, I'm sorry.
Is it on? No, it's just.
You gotta press the button.
Hold the button.
green. Hold the green, the button doesn't like to come on to the turn green.
Excuse me, testing. On other budgets I've worked on, if we're waiting for money to come in, we had a separate column. It was not included in the budget. It was expected money. So therefore, when people look at the budget, they don't include it because you don't have it. Why could we, all the grants we're expecting, why couldn't it have a separate column to show that it's money you're expecting that you may or may not receive? And then no one gets confused by that. I think it's confusing to have like this now.
I've got a problem with that. Trustee?
Here's my question is, wouldn't that be the same thing with any type of taxing money that we would get? Because we don't have property taxes yet, we don't have any of, you know, our sales taxes yet. So that would have to be, that would just be the structure, the way the budget was actually structured on paper versus what is in our mindset. That would be the only difference. And my concern is that if we were to remove these items from the budget, wouldn't we have to come back and amend the budget when we got the money?
Yes, you would.
So this is, because we all understand that the budget's paper, and that these are kind of like our projections, that's why you make a budget. And then if the money, we just need to be responsible and on top of things to know that if we don't get the money, we can't spend the money. But if we took all the grants, or the property taxes, or the sales taxes, and everything out that is physically in our bank right now, every time Mohan would get a check, he would have to come back to, I mean, I'm assuming, he would have to come back to us and say, okay, we got our property taxes, now we need to amend the budget because we got our property taxes so we can utilize those funds. And 3 weeks later, okay, we got the cop grant, so now we'd like to go out and we need to hire that police officer. So since it was never in the budget, we need to amend the budget to put it back into the budget so then we can find it. And I feel like that's a lot. So I think that that's kind of why we project and go from there.
But again, I think based off what, you know, you bring up a good point. Based on that, this entire first page would be off into a different line item. Because we have not received our property taxes, we haven't received all of our licenses and permits. These are, again, projected what we're going to receive on licenses, permits, projected what we're going to receive for taxes. Again, grants, what we're projecting is going to come in for grants, things like that. So, you know, based off of it is a good point. Everything on this first entire page would have to go into a different column because we have not received all this. These are all projections.
Can I ask a question? Mayor, you've been on the board longer than anyone. When have we ever amended the budget? When have you ever known the budget to be amended?
I think there were many ways before.
I never, since I've been before, I've never amended. I'm just saying, I don't remember amending the budget. I've never known that we actually amended the budget.
I know we did it once and without.
Amended the budget.
Yeah, we had to come back and amend it.
I don't remember that. I don't remember ever amending the budget. But the reason I'm just asking that because, you know, we were supposed to amend this budget, last budget, last year. We were supposed to do that. We said in 6 months we would come back. That never happened. And then we had this meeting, and we found out, because I had projected back in July that we would be in the situation we were in by November. Sure enough, we were there. We never amended that. So I'm just looking on past practices. We never amended a budget, but, you know, just saying that we don't, you know, we can amend. The reason why I stayed up and I did all this is not for an argument. This was for, to show checks and balances, something that we haven't done. We need to, as a board, be on top of our expenditures, because if not, we're going to keep going further and further in the hole. We don't have a credit card via village, of Sauk Village. In other words, whatever we don't pay, we can put it on a credit card and pay it later. This is the money that we dealt with. We should be conservative with that money. And if we have to go back, we've gone back and had meetings for less than. If we have to go back and have a meeting to say, and let this board know that we need to vote out some more money, I think we need to do that. This way it keeps everybody above board, it keeps everything going, instead of coming up in November or December, looking at the budget and saying, oh, we have the money, so all we can pay is payroll. Or we cannot pay payroll unless we borrow from this account. I mean, I'm just trying to look at these numbers more realistically. If we get more money back and we have this budget in play, that's where you go and you pay off your aging report. That's where you go and you pay off your bill that you've had on the table for 2 years. But I'm not going to go into, and that's what I did this for, go into a new budget as we have been doing in past practice. I think we need to at least look at this and, you know, closely. I don't know if, you know, this is the budget that I'm going to propose. When we pass, and if we have to amend it, then we go back and amend it, as you just have to state. If we get more money in, fine. But I'm not going to spend and hope that I get some more money. If I got $10 in my pocket, I'm going to spend $10. If I spend $12, you go to the store, and your groceries add up to $25, and you got $20. You're not going to tell them I'll pay you later. They're going to tell you to put something back. So that's all I'm asking to do, is pay what we know. And what we know is what we got in last year. That's what we know. We know what we got in last year. That may change too. But at least if we got in $50,000 for this, let's spend $50,000. Not $60,000, hoping that somebody down the road may do something later. Okay.
But when you do it the way that I was explaining, you have quarterly reviews. You don't do it every week. If you get 2 checks a week, you don't do it every time. You have quarterly reviews. So that way by mid-year, you know that you should have expended half your budget, regardless of what comes in. And if that third quarter, the money comes in, your quarterly review picks it up at that time. So it's not a weekly change, it's a quarterly review. That's how it should be done.
And I think that one of the things that was just presented last week was the fact that just in the past month, I would say, lots of things have happened. First of all, we haven't had a village administrator since 2010, 2011, I guess. And so that was that's new. We're hoping that as a board, I would assume the hope is that JW is going to come in. I know he's been here, he's been talking with me a lot, he's been taking other notes. So I think that finally Mohan will have somebody to kind of assist in a lot of these things. A lot of things have been put on him. And secondly, the mayor presented a finance committee, which you and I are both going to be on. So I think that would be our responsibility at that point. Once we get together, format how this is going to work, I'm not sure if the mayor has delegated who else is going to be on that committee. I don't know if employees are going to be on that committee, if residents are going to be on that committee. I'm a little confused about the structure, and I'm assuming eventually we would sit down and kind of figure that out together. But from what I'm understanding, from what I guess what I'm just assuming, is that finance committee would have to meet at least monthly as a whole, and then it would be our responsibility to report to the board. And I don't know if that, and this goes for all the meetings that were suggested, I don't know if that's something that's going to be at a board meeting, if that's going to be at a committee meeting that we have to get back to. So I'm a little confused about the actual structure, but I would assume that that's what's going to happen. That we would be meeting with, I would assume, both of you guys at some point, at least once a month, and then it would be our responsibility to bring that back to the board. So if we have to amend the budget for whatever reason, if there is, something to report, then that would be our responsibility, your responsibility as chair, to kind of present that. So I think we're kind of all on the same page. It's just, exactly. It's because if, Trustee Burgess has said it would like to amend the budget that was already presented and reviewed. And what he's also saying is he's going to present this budget, and if we need to amend this, then that's okay too. So I think that it's different viewpoints, but the goal is the same. We don't have this money right now. It's on paper in case we do. And I guess it's just a viewpoint. Do you want to look at the piece of paper where the projections are, or do you want to look at the piece of paper where there are no projections? That's really what I see it comes down to.
Has the state ever not given us our property tax money?
Yeah.
They're usually behind by quite a few months. They made some changes, and we're excited. There's a bill that was just passed in Springfield where now they have, 90 days? 4 months. So they have 4 months to pay us. We were running 6 to 8 months behind, something like that. So, they're pretty far behind. But with that new bill being passed in Springfield, they need within 4 months, and I think there's a direct deposit too or something like that. What's that? Yeah, so that's what I thought it was. It's 2 to 4 months, or 2 to 3 months. So, we're expecting to see our money a lot sooner. So which is good.
But normally it comes in, but maybe just late.
Oh, late or,
Every month we do get income taxes, but they are behind about 4 months. For example,
Still.
January taxes collected will not be paid to us until after May. So there's a 4 month lag. So, but in essence, we do get on a regular basis every month the tax coming in.
Right.
Sometimes we get 2 months tax at a time. In general, March, April, we will get 2 months tax. So,
But necessarily, we don't have to get grant money.
well, we do offer grants.
I'm just saying we don't have to get, if a grant is proposed to us, are we guaranteed to get that just like our property taxes? Is there a time limit on that?
Oh, no, there's never a guarantee on a grant, because you have to fill an application out, you gotta go through all the work to get grants, and a lot of times the grants might be a certain amount of money, and not every community will receive money. It's like every year we apply for the CDGD to do our streets. We usually apply double, so usually we apply for $400,000 worth of street repairs. We usually get about half, which is about $200,000 based on that. So when you look at things like that, it's some things that we're pretty confident we're going to get. Like every year they give out money for the cops grant. Okay, that's pretty positive we're going to get that. When it comes to the fire department, they're pretty generous on making sure the fire departments have what they need. So, you apply for grants like that. The Osland grant for the parks, we went through hoops, a lot of hoops to get that grant. We were already told that we got it, but however, it's still now sitting on hold. We haven't received it yet. So there's things like that. Again, they're always applying for grants. They have everything from grants from 50-50 grant, an 80-20 grant, you've got 100% grants. So depending on what type of grant that you apply for, there's always lots of grants out there. Some grants we don't even apply for because we know we don't have the village's portion to pay for those grants.
So it's clear that grants and taxes are different. So they can be line different.
Well, they could be. Again, I say I got no problem with grants, but again, looking at the statement is, we still haven't received, our taxes, just like we haven't received grants. So if we're going to put everything in a separate line item on stuff we have received and we haven't received, that's why I said that. But to spell it out, to show, what was a grant versus what's projected, I've got no problem putting another column saying there's grants, but however, you're still projecting that we're going to receive that money. And then when you look at a proposed budget, that's what you're projecting you're going to receive. So, trustee.
Trustee Burgess.
Mike.
$13,000 for add to the youth thing, right, to the budget, under the park and playground.
I haven't gotten to that point, but yes, I haven't gotten,
So,
right, I haven't gotten to there, but yes, I did. When I get to, I mean, I was trying to go page by page instead of jumping over. But when I get to that, yes, I do have an explanation. Everything that's highlighted, or in your case, that's darkened, I do have an explanation for it.
I mean, please.
No, I'm just saying, I mean, we can, you know, I'm just trying to go page by page.
All right, okay, let's go to the next one. We talked about the grant.
Okay. Transfers from the water fund. That's, I guess towards the bottom of the page. Originally, we had $300,000, then you broke it down to 150, 150. That's what I broke it down to. That would be on page 2 of your 8 March 12th budget. That's on page 2. Okay, it says water and sewer fund. Okay. My question is, I would like to know what the purpose is of transferring. Okay. I would like to get, and we should have, an analysis of how these monies are allocated. The village currently pays salaries from the finance director, village administrator, and his clerk, the entire payroll of the payroll clerk and administrative clerk, as well as the entire public works department. The village needs to know exactly how these funds are being utilized into the general fund. So we need to get a more detailed what we transferring these $300,000 for. That was something that was recommended by the auditing firm, that we should at least know where these monies and how they're broken down, not just a blanket $300,000 taken out of that fund and put it to the general fund.
All right. Next one.
Okay. No, I'm just, these are my recommendations. If you want to speak on them, fine. I'm just.
No, that's in there, that was okay.
You know, again, I look at the transfers from water and sewer fund. This goes back, going back 4 years. I mean, even with trustees that are sitting in the audience, even did it back then. So, I mean, we look at all these, going back to these transfers, it's always been there for administration, it's always money that goes in. And again, this is something that I think there's only been one time that it was never a transfer, and that was in 2010. We've done a deep dive in looking at all these transfers. Again, this is something new that now all of a sudden we want to have an explanation going into this. The $150,000 from each water sewer fund, again, it's something, it's never been $300,000, as you can see over the years, because of the cost of living and stuff. That amount does increase. So I mean, we can have Mohan sit down and take a look. And again, this is money that goes into the general fund that helps the village do the operation of our village. So, you know, to break down and say I'm going to put $10 toward this person, I'm going to put $20 toward this person, I'm going to put, you know, again, it's probably a lot to be asking for, but again, we've looked at. There's a reason why you have the money coming in from these funds, transfers for your community. So I'll have Mohan take a look at it and see if they can put something together. But again, it's going to be probably pretty raw material, because we're not going to put a number down saying we're going to put exactly this amount to the penny for this. So we'll have to take a look at it.
A number of meetings, some of the residents, it's some of the things that not only should trustees and yourself be aware of when money is transferred, but the residents have that question also.
Again, there's money that's being transferred for administration, for operations, and things like that. Just like when you have other things that have to happen. I mean, so there's reasons for transfers. And again, this is not something that just happened last year. This is something that the village has been doing for probably 20 plus years. It's part of the budget. and it has, it shows where the money, it's showing that we're showing that the money's being transferred from these funds into the general fund. So, again, we take a look at it and try to put something together. And if you look at every single transfer, you know, we've got quite a few transfers where monies are transferred.
It's pretty much common in almost all the municipalities in the state of Illinois to transfer a portion of funds from water source or enterprise fund, if you will, to general fund for purposes of operations and administration of the overall fund in general fund.
And should water funds be used for water-related items?
No. Water, it need not be, because as a general entity, general fund upfronts payment on behalf of other funds. And incur a lot of expenses like legal fees, accounting fees, anything. But likewise, the general fund charges other funds and administrative fee. It is otherwise the transfers. It's pretty much common in almost all the municipalities. I can give you tons of examples for those transfers that were made from water source funds into general fund.
What I wanted to say is this, and this is the reason why this is in here. Yes, it's been done over the years. Yes, it may be common, but then again, we used to walk until they invented the car. I'm sure when the car came along, people didn't take the walk, they got to the car. We need to find a different way, at least let the people know so we don't have all these questions. At every meeting that we have when it comes to taking money and paying accounts payable, that when we transfer this money, it should be itemized and used for what it should be. I understand that it may not be used for water, but if it's used for payroll, say it. Put it down there. Put it there that we need to use this money for payroll. I mean, yes, we have problems, but what's wrong with at least transparency to tell the people that, okay, we can't pay payroll, but we have this money in this fund to use that. That's not an embarrassment. That's trying to pay your payroll. And it should be itemized. It should be at least put somewhere, because as already stated, when you transfer money from an account from one fund to another, the board should be made aware and it should be written down. That was part of the recommendation on the auditors when they audited our money. So, I mean, yes, it's been done over the years, but just because you've been beating somebody over the years doesn't mean that it's right. Let's at least put something on paper and explain it out. Yes, we had to use the money for payroll. We had no other way. Well, you're going to give us some money. So the money's there. This way, when the money comes in, we can proudly say, the money came in and we paid back the transfer. That's all I'm asking. That's all. That was the reason why that was there.
Trustee Reyes.
I think that Mohan has come to us multiple times and said, we need to take X amount of dollars from the water fund to do this with it. And I don't think it's ever, to my knowledge, been moved money here and then we don't know where it's at. And when we've said we can't pay water, we can't pay our bills, we can't pay payroll, what are we gonna do? He's presented that. So are you asking for something like on a physical piece of paper?
Yes.
That you would like to have, because
Yes.
so saying it and putting it in the minutes is not enough.
No, because what happened?
A physical piece of paper to what? Pass out to
No.
clients or?
To have it on record. Because we transferred money, and you know this, trustee, we transferred money and paid payments to the grass cutting without our knowledge, but at least not without my knowledge. I didn't know anything about it, so I happened to see it on the accounts payable, and I said, what is this, and why do we pay that? That money was taken out without the vote of the village until they voted on the accounts payable. It was stated before. It was stated a lot of times. Well, it was stated once by the mayor. I asked him, why are we going over the budget? Why are we voting money out that we don't have? And why are we doing that? He basically said, I didn't vote it out, the trustees did. So if we're going over budget, it's the trustees' fault. So I'm just asking to have clarification. All I want is clarification when we do this, that we have a paper trail, so then when we get the money back, we can put it back in there.
Okay, so I'm looking for what type of clarification you're your water, because
I
you're
want-
on paper. So what do you want? Do you want the finance director to put out a memo? Do you want the finance director how do you want it to be a paper trail?
Okay. When you get your accounts payable every 2 weeks, you get a cover sheet from where Mohan puts on there where these funds were taken from. And if you notice, it shows the balances of each one of those funds. It shows water and sewer, TIP 1, 2, 3. It shows the balance of how much we have in each one of those funds. I had questioned before, why are we taking more money out of the water and sewer without it being accountable? In other words, we're paying salaries out of that, but also we're paying other entities, and what are those entities that we're paying? In other words, okay, we're paying salaries that's supposed to be for water and sewer personnel, for administrative, but also what else are we paying? Are we paying other entities that are not part of water and sewer? And that's all I'm asking is to show a paper trail.
How?
When he pays them, he knows how. He's the one that's.
No, what I'm asking is, what are you, because you're right, we get that cover sheet, we say it during the board meeting, it's in a minute. So my question is the actual physical practice. What would you like to see change?
I'd like to see that we get more detailed expenditures so we can have a
Via
grant,
email, via memo, via.
whatever we
I
get.
think that's great information for the new budget finance committee to put together.
That's where I was going.
Okay.
This is my.
And the budget finance committee will come before the village board and present that information.
But as a part of that committee, that's why I'm looking for further clarification. What written document would you like to see to be presented?
And I think what you need to do is we'll get the budget finance committee, once you start forming, it's a great thing to come back before a committee meeting, sit down, and let's discuss this at a committee meeting on what the board is looking for so it can be developed and can be implemented.
And my only other comment is, because I know that Mohan has come to the board before, and I know that water is a hot button topic in this village. I'm not saying it's not. And I've asked for Robinson to come back and show again how I'm not sure how this Lake Michigan water is going to come through, but thankfully I'm not on that committee. So those of you guys who are, bring it, go for it. But my concern is this. Because everybody wants it, so bring it here, perfect. My concern is this. As Sauk Village, one of our revenue sources is water. That's our money. When we cap our wells or do whatever, we no longer get that revenue, but right now our water is our money. We use that to pay for services that develop water too. But it's also another revenue source. So when we're months behind on our taxes, people don't pay for their village stickers, people don't pay for their property or the water bills and all of this stuff. What money we do get in, that's our money. We can utilize it. I have no problem with saying we're taking this money out of this fund and putting it to use for payroll or for pay whatever. I have no problem with the paper trail. But we need to understand that the money that comes in from the water is Sauk Village funds. We own water. We're dishing out the money that we get back is our money to utilize. Before Lake Michigan Water, the whole idea of Lake Michigan Water came into play, no one was concerned about what happened. Now we're so concerned about saving up the money to get this. I mean, let me tell you, the $200 water bills that we get, or in some cases the $500 water bills that we get, we're going to need a whole lot of those water bills in order to afford Lake Michigan Water. When Chicago's raising their rates, when we've got still, what did Robinson say our last leakage amount was? When we still have pipes busting every day, when we need new infrastructure, we have all those other things, these water bills aren't going to cut it. We need more money anyway. So to think that just the money that we get from water bills is going to help anything is
Please
not.
keep your comments to yourself.
It's just not. So we need to start looking at the money that we get in, all of our revenue sources. We need to understand that those dollars are going to be utilized to pay. And we don't take those things, we don't take our water bill money to buy new desk chairs. We don't take our water bill money to do things like that. When Mohan is saying we're taking money out of the water fund, it's because we can't pay our employees. It's because we can't. We've got things that we need to absolutely buy. And to my knowledge, those things have been presented. So I'm just confused. I don't village website was working well, I could show you how we've had budgets, the trustee Chavez, according to these, when I'm looking on the website, was the first person to approve a budget amendment in 2012, it said. I mean, we've done it, so this isn't, I guess I'm confused. Because we've talked about the budget multiple times. We're looking at these now, we're presenting them, and I have no problem with going over them, but when something's presented, I want to know how are we going to fix it. You want something written in writing, you want it in writing, what's going to happen? What's the physical practice? Because I don't want to keep rehashing, because we've done this budget multiple times. So if we could kind of go over everything, is this going to change, yes or no? Go for it. Is this going to change, yes or no? And then we can kind of...
They just kind of, we've got a couple of the trustees on the board, some of the older trustees understand this. For years, going back probably 3 or 4 administrations, maybe even more, Sauk Village has always had to get a $500,000, $500,000 loan in between our sales, between our taxes coming in. Sauk Village, kind of give you a little bit of example, Sauk Village gets one lump sum usually at the beginning of the year, and then money trickles in, and then we get a lump sum at the end of the year. So what ends up happening is we have a void where we're getting very little money, okay? Sauk Village has always had to get a $500,000 loan in that period of time. Now, instead of Sauk Village going out and getting a loan and having to pay principal and interest on $500,000, Sauk Village now borrows money from its water fund, which according to state statute allows a municipality to borrow from enterprise and from water funds as long as we pay the money back, which we do. What we do is we get to this point where we're not having money's trickling in, Sauk Village borrows from this fund. As the money comes in at the end of the year, we take the money we borrow and we put it right back into the water fund. Again, it saves us money. We're not paying principal, we're not paying interest on a loan. You figure a $500,000 loan, that interest could be pretty high. We're not doing anything, what some people may say, oh, is it illegal? We're not. We have auditors come in to make sure we're not doing anything illegal. We have the state statute that says the village can do this. And again, looking at cost savings. Now, if the village board wants to say, I'm not borrowing money from the water fund anymore, then we're going to have to make sure we can go out and find a source to get a $500,000 loan every year to fill that gap where we're not getting any money. Okay? So, the village is not facing anything different than it's always faced. We're just doing things a little bit different, and we're saving the taxpayers' money. So that's why we're able to go in there and get those funds and borrow it. Are we required to pay the money back? Yes, we are. We're required by state statute. That's why we have auditors come in every year to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and making sure that those funds are getting paid back. So just kind of give you a little bit of an example on what happens here. Again, I think the old saying is feast and famine, right? I mean, for a person that gets paid every 2 weeks, you have to source your money out over 2 weeks for your next paycheck. If you took your check at the beginning of the first 2 weeks and spent all that money, you wouldn't have anything for the next week and a half until you receive your next paycheck. You know, Mohan's very good at taking the money, looking at it coming in, trying to look at how it's going to happen. The problem we have is, as a municipality, is that big lump sum, and the lump sum at the very end is what the village budgets for that entire year. Okay? What ends up happening is we're going to get all that money that we project, but you run short halfway throughout the year. And it's nothing that the village has faced over multiple years. It goes back for years. Probably years and years ago, they probably used to get like a $200,000, $300,000, and as the cost of living increased, they increased to $500,000. And because we haven't done it for the last few years, it may be probably closer to $750,000 now. We don't have to go out and get that money. We don't have to pay that interest. So, Trustee Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that the recommendations that I hear Trustee Burgess bringing up, I think that they are sound. I think that those are some good philosophies, but I think that also by the mayor appointing new committees with 2 trustees on every committee, you're kind of like saying the same thing, but just in a different way. To have 2 trustees on every committee is more like a check and balance. The things that Trustee Burgess are bringing up, like Trustee Williams said, now that Trustee Tates and herself are on that committee, they'll be able to follow the budget with the finances more closely. And you keep talking about Trustee Tates about the quarterly budget, whereas if you only have the monthly meetings, you'll be able to do those things that Trustee Burgess was talking about. I don't know if Trustee Burgess wants to go through this entire budget, but all of the highlight items and get that change for the budget now, but these are concerns that he said, he told the mayor, you told us you wanted feedback, this is the feedback that I'm bringing to the board. But I think that basically all of us are saying the same thing, but in a different way. I do think it's good that the mayor did put 2 trustees. I've never heard of that, but for whatever reason he did it. I can see now why it's really going to work, especially with the finance department. They'll be able to keep a closer eye on the water and on the sewer and on the grants and on the property tax, and have, instead of coming out once a year and get through half the year and say, I told you so, we ran out of money. Your negative finance committee in place that's watching the money every single month to make sure the money's going where it's supposed to be going, to give the itemized list of where the money went, that Trustee Burgess was talking about. So I think in the end, all of us are saying the same thing, but just in a different way. We are moving forward from this point based on the bad decisions that were made in the past. And I think that if we all keep the same frame of mind, it'll all work out and it'll be okay. But today we can talk about the budget as is and make the changes possibly to even pass it on today. So I'm asking Trustee Burgess, are these changes that you want to see done before the budget is passed? Is that the bottom line?
Okay, I didn't do this just to bring this to the board and say, okay, these are recommendations. These are actual numbers. If you notice, I changed numbers. I'm not going by what we should be looking at or what the mayor appointed a committee to do at a later time. I'm looking to take control of this right now. In other words, these are the numbers that I proposed. Today, we can vote on them, we can vote on them next week. The mayor has a budget that he has, and he has to have it voted on. This is something that I came up with for us to consider to be voted on as is. In other words, not vote on something and then come back and change. We didn't do that last time. So I'm asking, and the reason why I changed, when I changed the numbers, I'm giving you a reason why I changed the numbers. I'm writing it down, the reason why the numbers went from point A to point B. And that's all I'm asking. I'm not asking you to reconsider the budget that the mayor proposed, and as it happens or when it does happen or whatever, that we change it. These numbers, it took me a while to do this. These numbers here are the numbers that I came up, and I came up with the reasons why I came up with these numbers, and also some of the recommendations. And that's what this is about. It's not about we go ahead as planned or as we've always have, and then next month we change this or whatever the case may be.
Okay, so worst case scenario, first of all, you said that you changed the numbers.
Yes.
Some of the numbers didn't change. You just looked into different line items, like for the water and sewer fund. Over here it has $300,000. You just made one line item saying $150 for water, and then another one that says $150,000 for sewer. So it's the same amount, but you just categorized them to specify.
Absolutely.
So what I'm saying, some of the numbers did change, but you rearranged them for different line items.
What he had on his line item, if you look at the budget, it says water/sewer.
I see.
Okay, all I did was say water, and then another line item sewer.
I understand.
And I was just basically going 150. I didn't change that number. The numbers I changed, I did.
I understand all of that. It's just, to me, because I understand what you're saying, what the budget is saying, it's almost like the mayor is saying, when he walked into McDonald's, I want a Happy Meal, and it's going to be $5. And you're saying, when you walk into McDonald's, I want a Happy Meal, I'm going to pay $2 for the hamburger, $2 for the fries, $1 for the pop. That's how you want your receipt to read.
No.
And that's how you want his receipt to read.
No.
It's the same thing, but just worded in a different way, more itemized. That's not correct?
No, because
Okay, let's do the water fund. Let's do that.
I'm right
That's
now.
the water sewer fund, $300,000.
Yes.
That's what his budget says, right?
Yes.
Yours say for the water, $150,000.
Okay.
For the sewer, $150,000.
Okay.
Is that $300,000?
Yes.
So both of you are saying $300,000, but you're itemizing yours, and he's putting his in a lump sum. Is that correct?
He's
That's the
put
law.
this there. Yes.
I'm also saying, in conclusion, I'm glad that now we have a finance committee, which is chaired by Trustee Tates and Trustee Williams, the co-chair, that they'll be able to follow these kinds of entities with the money on a monthly basis. Whatever we decide to do today, your budget will have to be amended if it's not correct. The mayor's budget that he's presenting is going to have to be amended if it's not correct. It doesn't matter either way, but I'm glad to know that we do have a committee in place, like Parks and Recs, all of us, that will have check and balances from here forward.
Here's my comment question, okay? two completely separate budgets. Some numbers have changed, some numbers have not. There are some instances where, you know, David said his whole Happy Meal's $5 and Derek is broken it down by, but there are some times where they're getting the exact same item, to use your vernacular, but it's different costs. So there are some differences in here. My concern is that today is May 16th, and our budget started May 1st. So this is something that I don't think that this is the arena for it. I think that 3 trustees at the last meeting had a concern with the budget. 3 trustees, I voted left. So 3 trustees, Trustee Burgess, Trustee Washington, Trustee Myers, said yes to a motion to table this because they had concerns, okay? We're discussing the concerns now. My question is, did either of you, the other 2 trustees, Trustee Burgess had questions, he presented, okay. Do either of you 2 have anything to present, any questions with the other budget, or what? Because I guess what I'm looking at is, I feel like we're talking about what's going to be happening with the Budget and Finance Committee, and that this is kind of our realm. And I'm just the co-chair, so I'm, as the chair, I'm not sure how you see this, but I kind of feel like this is something that we could have taken back to our committee and discussed it with Mr. Fairman, Mr. Brown. I don't know if the mayor's on this committee, but whoever who's going to be on this committee.
I'll be a guest every so often.
To look at these changes, because at this point, we need to look at what are we going to do. Honestly, I think we need some resolution because we're just talking back and forth, and I don't know that there's a solution that's happening. The trustees don't create budgets. That's just not what we do. Trustee Burgess has taken a lot of time, and he's gone line item by line item, which I think is great. But if we're not planning on making these changes, then what are we doing? And I don't know that if we've gone through and each thing that's bolded, we've said yes or no to. We're just discussing it. So this is kind of my point. What is the point? Are we just talking to talk, or are we going to actually do something?
Okay, and Trustee Williams, I'm glad you said that. I appreciate that because that was going to be my next point. If the mayor is going to entertain a motion to accept his budget today, because that's what the special meeting was called for, then you're absolutely right. This is all for naught. We treat people, like I said last year, when I did present something, the following meeting, the mayor came back with all the rebuttals of everything that I did, and guess what? We still ended up voting. And so maybe I need to hold off right now. Everybody has a copy. Maybe the first thing I need to find out, because it is May 16th. Last year, when did we pass the budget? Does anybody remember what month we passed the budget last year?
June.
Do you remember mortgage by June, right? So we have time. So if you want to take it back to your committee and look at this, I have no problem with that. I was just trying to explain the reason for me changing the numbers. That's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to explain the reason why. If the mayor still feels that he wants to go forth today and pass a budget, I need to know that. Because if he is going to go forth today and pass a budget and not even consider or not even, whatever with this one, I need to know, because now all I'm doing is spinning my wheels, and I'm sorry. At this age and time in my life, I don't need that.
Mayor's decision.
Well, I mean, it's on the agenda.
The other 2 trustees. The other 2 trustees had questions, so I'm asking, do the other 2 trustees who voted yes to, because I voted yes because, like I said, 3 other trustees said they had questions, so let's entertain it. What are your questions? Trustee Burgess, you presented this, that's great. And I don't, like I said, I'm just the co-chair, the vice chair. So the chair, I don't want to overstep your bounds on this committee. So if this is something that you would like to review, no problem. I think that's what should happen. But my concern is what is about the other 2 trustees who said that to present, if we're gonna approve that, if that's the will of the board, who has to vote for it? Because the mayor doesn't vote unless it's a tie. So if the board is wanting to vote for this budget, then we need to kind of talk about that, and everything else can be discussed in the finance committee.
All right, Mike.
Hello. We started talking about all my concerns was the grant, the youth grant. And you cleared up some of my thoughts. I'd like to, one more time, go over it. Do we have the youth grant? Yes or no?
Do we have it personally? No, we do not have it. We've been told by one governor we received it, we've been told by another
Do
governor.
we have a letter from the governor, senator, the congressman, the rep? Do we have anything from the state saying we have that grant? That's ours.
We do. We received a letter from the IDNR saying that we received the grant. And then we received a letter from IDNR saying, hold off, don't spend that money right now while the governor is reviewing all the grants and things like that. So the new governor.
Okay, so that's put in the line item.
Correct.
For now, can he pull anything from that line item? If we don't have it, how can we pull it?
I'm sorry.
Okay. If that's in the line item,
Right.
once it's in the line item, that means that department or whatever has the right to charge something that have no law taken out of that
No,
line item.
no, they cannot because this is a grant. The grant is very specific.
Okay, let's say they bring the department of rec, they want to go by bringing this flag. Anybody bring this flag?
Not based off of that grant.
Not without them receiving that grant.
Well, not only by receiving that grant, they can't do it because that grant is specific on what has to be done. And what
Right.
I'll do is I'll put the board out here again.
That's
That
correct.
grant spells out exactly what has to be built, what has to be bought. It spells out specific on what work has to be done and where it has to be done at. And that grant is specific for Arrow Park.
I fully understand that. So he can't spend any of that until we actually physically get the grant in, correct?
And once the grant is received, that.
Let's say, yeah.
No, you can't spend the money from that grant, and when the grant money is received, that grant money has to be used for that part, and for exactly what it says, because the village has a checklist that says there's a quarter-mile walking path, there's a new soccer field, there's the redoing of all 4 baseball fields, there's batting cages, there's ADA walking paths, there's the development of a parking lot, there is a new playground equipment that has to go in that area, there's energy-efficient lighting, there's new signage at both, Merrill and Peterson, going into these parks. It's very specific on what that money has to be spent for inside that grant. And it can't be spent for anything else except for those items.
There are 5 line items in the budget. It has to be spent within the 5 line items. It very clearly specifies. Materials and labor.
Okay, so you can't spend it until we get it. We haven't received it yet. We have a letter that our dearly beloved governor sent to us, but
Yes, I have.
then he decides that he wants to put a hold on everything to checking out how much money he has over there gone, but whatever. The money's on hold, right? So that's one part of it. Feels there, so you have to go that way, but you have to we had those we're gonna get it. So. But now it's just staying there. So it's a maybe.
So it's there, once they release the funds, we can move forward and start having work done.
All right. So with that now, we could, as Trustee Williams said earlier, we could have came to the board and amended our budget when it came in, but everybody wouldn't know what we have it, and next thing you know, you're gonna have 1,400 residents out there ready to chop our heads off because nobody knew that we had a grant coming in. So that's the reason you put it in there, anticipation.
But again, when you apply for the grant, we know that when you get the money, we're going to do the work.
Long before we get to it, but I got to it.
It's in here, okay? We've already applied for the grant, we've already put all the work together. I've already been to Springfield, had to do a presentation before the IDNR board. It's an Oslin grant that we're receiving. Again, that's why there's other questions on if the governor can really freeze it, which he's doing it anyway. So, you know, we feel pretty confident based off what we're hearing from Springfield, we're going to end up getting that money as soon as the governor releases it. But again, it's in here inside the budget, so once we receive the funds, the work can get started. So, I mean, we put together a whole entire plan. Anyone that knows anything about grants, I mean, you especially going to the schools, you have to put together a plan, and that plan has to include what's going to be done, and that's what we've done. And all that money, that $335,000, is already part of the whole entire plan that has been approved. So.
Okay. The other one I had is the bonds. We had I'm on the very last page now. We had the whole transaction of the bonds and everything. Well, tell me one tip that we have acted on.
2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4.
Uh,
You are referring trustee, once your reference is related to bond.
You better give it
Number
mine.
2
You better
and
give it
number
mine.
3.
I'm sorry.
The bonds you're referring to is specifically related to TIF number 2 and 3. In addition, we do have general obligations fund, 2007 A, B, C fund also.
Okay. I'm going to go back. 2 meetings back, 3 meetings back. Resident. Ms. Cass brought up a grant or money that the police department received, and you came around and no, it didn't go to the police department. It came to the general fund. Okay. What was that all about?
It was the grant I applied for on behalf of the village of Sauk Village, and we were given about $19,000 for the use of general funds. So I had a deposit and credited it to general fund, not for the police or fire or any other related expenditures.
And I think just the board realizes too that every department head is out there looking for grants. The fire department applied for, you've got 3 of them working there right now, okay? Police department applies for grants, Mohan applies for grants, Kevin's applying for grants. We're out there constantly trying to bring money. You think about Mohan's looking for funds to help the general fund. Fire department's looking for funds to help fire department, police department. Kevin's looking for funds out there to plant more trees, to do infrastructure repairs, fire hydrants, which comes out both fire department and public works. You know, so first of all, number one, we know we've got multiple individuals out there applying for grants. The important thing is that if a grant comes in, and fire department's very good at it, it says, we received a fire grant, here's the letter, here's the money we're looking. So when that check comes across, Mohan can say, exactly, okay, here it is, the exact amount, it's for this grant, so we can make sure the funds are moved over to make those purchases. So I know Kevin's really good at too, if he gets grant money. Mohan is very aggressive out there. He's constantly looking for funds that are available not only through the state, but also through the federal government. We don't get every grant he applies for though. You go through all the work, you provide them. Finance has a lot of work to do. What we're going to use the funds for, you know, what's the financial state of the village?
That was all added in there. Okay, so it's in there.
In fact,
It's not under, we need it.
in fact, about 3 years ago, I applied for $165,000 grant from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity that we applied for, and we proposed the money should go to the Public Works Department because they wanted to take care of some road repairs and other stuff. And we did apply on behalf of Public Works.
Mr. Law, the $19,000 that you just speak of, what was the reason you put in when applying for that grant?
It is for the purpose of general funds. So
You said this is for the general fund?
in general fund, yes.
on some of the work that we did for that $335,000. So if anyone wants to take a look at it, when you lift up the Mylar, it shows you the exact floor plan of the parks. With it down where it is right now, it shows you all the work with highlighting on what is part of that grant. That's the $335,000 grant that everyone's talking about. That's inside this budget that we're just waiting for the release of funds.
So the trustee has Parks and Rec and those mobile home, you work with your close with that.
Oh, definitely. And once the funds are released, I'm believing we're gonna have a big party. Because, again, these funds are for not only for the youth, but you think about that quarter-mile walking path, how many seniors that have to walk to go to their towns, they can use this now. Soccer fields, which we currently don't have, bringing the baseball fields up to where they're supposed to be. And there's a lot of work in there when it comes to the infields, the outfields, putting in new dugouts, things like that with the funds. So, again, when we put that together, everything was spelled out in the grant, what we're going to do.
I asked trustee Burgess earlier, he has here $13,718 for construction of Arrowhead Park. No, I think that's it's right underneath that, it's a youth program now. Was that part of that bond, that's your grant that you're going to be working off of on page 4?
Okay, like I said,
contracted services.
Let me ask this question before we go any further with this. And Trustee Williams asked this question still with an answer. Yes, I took time to write all this down. Are we going to go? Are we going to just, the reason for me doing this is to get feedback and also to make this part of it. I'm not looking to vote the budget that we have in and then amend it. That's not why I did this. I could just did that. I did this to show real numbers, and we work with that. And if we get more money, as I stated at the very beginning, we can use that to pay our debt service down. We can use that to pay the bills we have on the back table. But it's no sense in me going through all this, and you still feel that we're going to pass the budget that was put in, and we amended it. Why am I going back? Or if I can just talk to the finance committee, and later on, why should we even go this route? The reason why I did this was to show that there are some things in the budget that was presented that need to be changed right now and not be presented. That was the reason for that. So if we want to go forth and do this, yes, I go over each item. I'm not going to skip and then come back. I want to go page by page if we plan on considering passing this budget. If not, if the consensus of the board is to pass the budget that was originally presented, and at a later date do an amendment, I need to know that. I want to know that if that's what you plan on doing, and that's what Trustee Williams asked. Are we planning on doing that, or are we planning on considering and going back and maybe pass this budget at a later date? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I came in and asked, like today was, but I still have concern on those 2 items. And those 2 items, the grant money in particular, everybody's sitting on this board, and we go spend a couple of days at 9 by 12 cells if we screw around with that grant money. And that's federal grant, we get federal, state, and county grant money in there. And I just wasn't sure where, a few years ago, we made a big boo-boo on a fire truck grant that we ended up paying, along the fire department's paying that. And that's almost $360-some-odd thousand. That was checked, handed over to our treasurer, and it was deposited in the general fund. And not naming the department, but every department, including the police department, falls from that. The next thing I know, when the pre-red fire truck got here, we wanted his check. Oh, we don't have a check for him. We put it in the general fund. So, that, you're right, 100%, we have to watch where they go. And I wasn't sure where the 2 grants, but I thought that grant was down there.
That's what I'm asking, Mayor. I'm asking this board that question I just stated. Are we going to, do you want to continue with this? And hopefully you can take it and look at it and come back and vote on this versus the one that was already presented? Or are you going to vote today on the one that was presented? That's my question.
Yeah, I trust anybody asks because, first of all, number 4 is a motion to approve the ordinance. It's up to the board, the trustees, on how they're going to vote and if it's going to be approved. The thing is, I look at this where I've asked for months for the board to bring recommendations, and I know we have 2 new members, so we had an existing board. We had asked for months for the department heads to work with Mohan on putting together a budget. Is this budget perfect? I'm not going to say it's perfect. I'm not a perfect individual. But we put our best foot forward on trying to put together a budget that we can continue running Sauk Village on. Is there additional things that I would like to put in this budget? And I've looked through some of the stuff that you talked about on cash reserves and things like that. It would be nice to be able to put money to the side if we had the funds there. I looked at the fire department. You're asking for cash reserves for the fire fund. Number 1, the fire fund is a total separate taxing body that you can only base the amounts that you have based on what's projected and coming in. So, the fire fund, working with the fire chief, he knows he's only projected a certain amount of money coming in. That's how much money you can spend. Just like on the general fund, we have multiple funds, especially, I guess this is kind of an education, if you don't know or if you do know, that when you look at the village has separate funds. You have your general fund, and in your general fund there's multiple departments. You have your water and sewer funds. Whatever you're projecting on bringing in is all you can spend underneath that fund. Same thing with general fund. Fire fund, what's coming in and injecting on the fire fund is what you can spend under fire fund. So when you look at the village, we're broke down into funds, and based off what's projected and coming in is how much you can spend. If we had more money coming in, I would say yes. Again, we talk about worst case scenario in this budget that we put together. And it is worst case scenario. We've received some good news, and we're expecting on receiving some better news coming up. But when you look at the governor saying, okay, well, I'm releasing your 2015 OGDF, I'm not cutting you by 50%, that gave us more money than we put into this budget. 2016, he's still saying, well, 50%, when we're hearing our state representatives saying, there's no way we're going to let the governor cut your funds by 50%. There's a lower amount that we're talking about. This budget still leaves us at 50%. Now, if they agree to 20%, that's going to give us 30% back into this budget. Okay, as of right now, though, we don't know what that number is going to be. When it comes to our loan for the IEPA, worst case scenario, $335,000 is what we're projecting. The payment will be for the next 19 to 20 years based on with principal and interest. Okay. Now, do we know that there's some good news coming from the IEPA? Yes, we do. Okay, but we haven't got it in writing yet. Do we know that there's some more good news coming out from the governor's office? We're hearing talks, yes, but we have not seen it in writing yet. Worst case scenario. Now, are we pretty confident? I don't want to use the word confident. Are we hopeful that $335,000 will decrease? Yes, we are. We'd like to see it decrease to 0. And if we receive everything we're supposed to from the state, that's $335,000 that we can put back in this budget. But we are budgeting to make that payment. So, as we look at this budget, we've talked about worst case scenario. We've talked about that, we're projecting on having to make these payments that we shouldn't have to make. I think that, again, I wish we received this information months ago. But again, you did receive it, but we talked to the board. Trustee, back in December, the village board. You want me to finish? Trustee, back in December, the village board was given a budget where we were currently at 60-some%. In January, February, they were giving another budget where the budget was sitting at 80-some%. Okay? I went to the board at multiple meetings them to come up with suggestions based off the budget and letting them know that the budget is not going to change that much, but if you have any suggestions, please come. About a month ago, we sat and had budget reviews and going over it. And again, nothing came from the trustee with all these things. These are things that we could have looked at, could have reviewed. Again, simple things where he talks about I'm just separated from water and sewer. I mean, very simple changes. But I think a lot of these things, last year, the trustee put together a 20-some page thing. We talked about, there are no solutions, but they're long-term they need to talk about. For this last year, the board didn't do anything with it. Okay, none of the board. But now we have a Budget and Finance Committee. The Budget and Finance Committee can start looking at some of these suggestions and going back and coming back to the board and saying, you know what, we looked at these top items and the board needs to reconsider. We've got no problem with stuff like that. And the important thing is as we move forward is getting a budget passed, a budget that can be amended just like any budget. But to be able to, keep the village moving forward and getting things done.
Okay, you keep, Mayor, I don't know why you say that, because first of all, I can't look at a budget till it comes before. I don't look at a 60%, 70%, because the first thing you'll say, we're not through. When you're through with the budget, you presented the board with a budget, you were through with it. The first one was May 8th. The second one that we got again was May 12th. Okay, how can I go over something if it's not done? What you're talking about is what I've been asking Mohan for all the time is expenditures and revenues comparison for the last X amount of months. Yes, I've been going over that. I've looked at that, and I've even talked about that. First thing I talked about was the overtime. And that was back in November, and I said then that we're going to exceed. We need to do something. Nothing was done. Yes, I presented this board with a proposal last year, and the following week we presented this board with a proposal of a proposal. And I said at that time, which I'm going to say again here, if the board wants to pass the existing budget that was presented by you, why do I need to keep going on and on with this? I prepared this because last time you said there was no solution. Now I have solutions. Now you're saying, let's pass this in a minute. I'm not going through this again. I do have solutions. I have them written down. I'm not going to piecemeal this, but I'm not going to waste this village time, these residents' time, or this board's time presenting this, and you still want to pass what you have. Don't say we don't have time. We do have time. There's no rush. Like I said last year, we passed this budget at the end of June. This is just the end of May. Now, today we have on the agenda to pass. If the board wants to continue as the agenda as stated, then there's no use to be doing this. I'm going to let those who feel that, they want to pass the budget, okay, fine. But why should I go and try to give a solution to what it is that I got in my hand the other day, because I finally got the last one, May 12th. And yes, I rushed to try to get this together as best as I could, to come to here to say, well, we're going to pass the other one, and we'll think about the other one, and thanks very much for doing that, and however we're going in this direction. My original question to the board, if you feel that you want to pass, as the mayor put on the agenda, the budget at hand, and think about this at another time, that's not what I'm asking for. Either we pass, or we pass this one, or we pass the other one. That's cut and dry. If you want to consider passing the one I presented, then I will continue to present this. I will continue to go over it and answer any questions and bring it to the attention, because what I put together is something that I feel that's more achievable in this village other than anticipated. I'm tired of anticipating. Yes, we anticipate taxes, but we're looking at last year what we got in. This year it is so out of whack. That's why I brought this before the board. But it's up to this board right now to make that decision. And that's all I'm asking.
Trustee.
Trustee Burgess, you're right. Last year you came with suggestions. You came with problems, no solutions. I just want to say thank you, because this year you took that again, we all kind of, I don't want to use the word criticize, but I think it was a criticism. We were asking you for actual solution. You did that. Thank you for that. And you made that statement. You're absolutely right. But again, I'll go back to my question I said 35 minutes ago. We're either going to approve it or not. We're going to vote yes or we're going to vote no. So can we move to item number 3 on the agenda, which would be a motion to approve the village budget? That will answer my question. That will answer Trustee Burgess' question. If the motion passes, then it passes. If it doesn't, then we obviously need more discussion, in which case I would then suggest that this item and the original budget is taken to the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee come back at a later date. But we won't know the answer to that question until we move to item number 3. So, can we move to item number 3 on the agenda, which is a motion to approve the 2015-2016 Sauk Village budget? I will make that motion.
Okay.
For moving.
We're motioning to move, or are you motioning to?
I'm asking if we can
Yes.
move. Okay, then I make a motion to approve, and then Trustee Myers has seconded.
Okay, we got a motion to say any questions or comments?
Question, are you approving the budget that was handed to us May 12th?
The last budget that was presented, which would be the May 12th.
That's my only question.
So we got a motion to second, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, go for please call roll.
Burgess,
No.
Jones,
No.
Myers. Motion to approve 2015-2016 Sauk Village budget. Tates,
No.
Washington,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Mayor votes yes. Your time. Move to item number 4, motion to approve the ordinance of the corporation for all corporate purposes for the village of Sauk Village, County of Will, State of Illinois, for the 5/1/2015 through 4/30/2016 fiscal budget. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Is there any questions or comments?
I have a question. Okay. Maybe it's more of a comment. Can we, at the next committee meeting, discuss the correct, because I know that there are only 2 trustees on the Finance Committee, but I think it's something that's very important. So can that be an item on the next committee meeting agenda to discuss the structure? I'd like further clarification, who's going to be on it, and I'd like to set a meeting date, because I would like to look at these changes, and if there's any other changes that are submitted, I'd like to look at these changes and review them in a smaller format, so we can readjust if needed.
What I'm looking for is the trustees to get together, put a committee together, and then come back to the board with your committee, and then we can pass things off to your committee for review, just like you do ordinance review has a committee put together. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm looking for the trustees to work together, to put a committee together. I don't want to, I went to the first point. I said trustees, chair, co-chair. I'm looking for you to put your committee together.
What?
Trustee. Yes, I'll have all that together. In fact, I've got a lot of it together for the committees.
What I asked the mayor for last week was to give us his vision, what he expected, his expectation.
For the roles and responsibilities for the committee.
So he
That's what I
had
was
that.
looking
Yep.
for. So after this meeting, if we can,
I
just
think
share
we
some
can-
information, and we can kind of start about that.
Should have that for you finished up by the beginning of this next week. I'll put it in your boxes. In fact, I'll put it in all the trustees' boxes on what the roles and responsibility. I mean, you already know yours. You two have been working on it together. So it's like the new ones for the budget and finance, and then for the public works and ignition wire. Those are the 2 new committees. The other committees pretty much have, it's already in there, what they're supposed to be doing. Parks and Recs already knows what they're supposed to be doing, things like that.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
I don't know if this is, before, well, I should ask this now, but this is new. Every committee has a chair and a co-chair.
Correct.
Right? That's a trustee. I want to talk about neighborhood watch, trustee Myers and I. Whether we handle neighborhood watch and ordinances, we go to neighborhood watch and we both know what's going on. God forbid, worst case scenario, something happened to me, or if I have to go to the hospital or leave town, whatever, he can step right in and know what's going on. The flow never stops. He knows exactly what's going on. So when we have chairs and co-chairs, we kind of like just, the chair, of course, is responsible for the committee, and the co-chair is working with the chair just to make sure they know and understand what's going on. They have feedback to bring back to the board, so we should be at the meetings and know what's going on. That's what trustee Myers and I do. Whatever they do, I should do. I'm not trying to be the only one that knows. Because if something happened to me, mean, the committee fails, and that's not what we want the village to fail. More than one person should know, like we agreed to cross-train everybody up in the front. If Cindy is gone, somebody should know how to pay the water bill. If something happens, everybody should know, so this should get a clear understanding out the gate, because we all have chairs and co-chairs, and we need to have some kind of, knowledge of what's going on, to be on the meetings, to see how everything is running, and to be able to help the residents, and to be able to help each other to bring back accountability to the board. Is that basically structure?
Structure is definitely, you have a chair, you have I call them vice chair, co-chair, whatever you want to call it. Again, it's putting 2 trustees, you know, a little bit more checks and balances on what's happening on every single committee. I'm expecting the trustees to work together to make sure that their committee succeeds. That's what's important. Your committee succeeding is important not only for yourself, but it's also important for the village residents. So we're looking for them to work together. Some of the new committees, you have to get yourself some other people on your committee. Some of the older committees that are already in place, you might want to make sure that you still have your committee members staying with you. You might want to look at maybe some new committees and looking at Parks and Recs, because that's an established one. I don't know about everyone watching, for the committee members or things like that. So Trustee Williams has got public and community and public relations. That's pretty much she already had public relations already, so she's already got committee members. But this is the time now with the new election to appoint new committee members and things like that. You know, especially with new chairs and things like that coming on board. So just want to, any other questions or comments? I just want to make sure that we're clear on this next motion is to be able to spend the money that's approved, that was just approved by the budget. So when we talk about the appropriations, so that on this next budget, we talk about payroll, things like that. This is allowing the village to spend those monies to make those payrolls and pay those bills.
I just asked Ohio for the amount because the audience member asked for the amount. So that would be $17,098,467.74.
All right.
I'm sorry. Basically, yeah.
All right. So we got a motion second on the floor. Village Clerk, please call roll.
Burgess.
No.
Jones.
No.
Myers.
Yes.
Tates.
No.
Washington.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Mayor votes yes. That's for a motion to adjourn.
Motion second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. There's already been a commission.
Excuse me, Trustee Washington.
Special budget meeting adjournment, 11:45 hours, May 16th, 2015.